Nintendo's design process is to start with the basic character movements and actions, and then build the actual game world last. In that sense, you could say that the world is an extension of your character itself, since it's been designed as a sort of playground for their specific movements and abilities. In the original, these lily pads were sized and spaced according to Link's momentum and acceleration. This is a problem in Majora's Mask 3D because it changes those traits, making Link's acceleration slower with a laggy startup. It's subtle, but it's enough to break Link's relationship with the environment. Pads that used to be simple to reach now require Link to run from the very farthest edge, forcing players to stop and reposition from pad to pad. If the player falls in the water while leaving this area, they'll be stuck on a ledge where they can't even reach the first pad or move backwards. The player will have to awkwardly run along the mouth of the cave in order to overcome the broken game design and escape. Spin hopping was also broken by this change. In the original, players could dramatically improve their speed by spinning onto the water, carrying all that momentum with them. It was one of those things that just felt good to pull off. It gave players flexibility in terms of how they got around the swamp. In the remake, Link's momentum is halted as soon as he hits the water. To see the impact this has had on the Deku, let's have a race. First one to get eaten by the Big Octo wins. By the time 64 Link finished, 3D Link was only halfway across the swamp, which is not a small difference. You can imagine how much more tedious it would be to hop all the way to the palace or the Skulltula house, which raises the question of why. Why take something no one ever complained about and break it like this? I can only imagine Aonuma was replaying the game, ran off of a ledge, and thought to himself, this is bad and needs to be fixed. Someone who isn't confident in their work may see any little hiccup as a problem with the work itself, whereas a player might run off a ledge and think, I screwed up, and I need to be more careful.
And I'm stupid.
And that summarizes a lot of the changes in Majora's Mask 3D. Anytime there's a learning curve or a skill to develop, the remake removes the challenge, as if it just wants to get itself over with as fast as it can. This is especially clear with the Zora swimming. In most games, underwater segments slow down the pace, but in Majora's Mask it was just the opposite. Link had never been as fast or agile as he was in the Zora form, taking tight, spiraling turns, diving out of the water like a dolphin, and generally doing a bunch of cool shit. The problem is that an inexperienced player may end up ramming the walls in tight spaces, but with some practice, the players would learn when to dog paddle, or to walk, or just how to swim without crashing into things. It's entirely possible to do if you invest the effort, and it's rewarding and fun to master a mechanic like this. Rather than asking players to do this, Nintendo replaced the beloved original swimming with this. Slow, human swimming. It can't dolphin jump, can't take spiraling turns, can't do any cool shit. The bay was designed around Zora swimming, to the point where certain platforms could only be reached by dolphin jumping in the Japanese version. Without that swimming, it becomes clear how empty and boring the bay really is. It wasn't the environment itself, but the action that took place here that made it memorable and fun. And now that action is gone. Or at least, heavily restricted. Majora's Mask 3D allows using the Zora swimming at the cost of magic, which drains so quickly that players can no longer use it to travel without running out in a matter of seconds. Even just tapping the R button to break barriers consumes magic now. And since no magic was added to the bay, there are new problems to deal with if you run out. For one, Shiro, the invisible soldier, has been moved to the fortress. If you don't have magic, you're not seeing him. The game only allows Zora swimming to be used in a few specific instances where magic is provided. And even there, the gameplay is usually compromised by the need to veer out of the way to hit pots or by the annoyance of the magic shield whirring and blocking the screen. But there's another problem with the Zora swimming. When is the player supposed to learn how to use it? One of the most basic ideas in game design is that you introduce players to a new mechanic step by step, giving them a chance to experiment so that when the game throws a challenging segment at them, it won't feel unfair or cheap. In the original game, players wouldn't be able to resist running straight into the ocean to see what the Zora mask could do. I spent half an hour swimming just for the fun of it, but more importantly, I learned how the mechanic worked. In Majora's Mask 3D, players will enter the water, see the new slow swimming, which doesn't really need an explanation, and that'll be it. If they do try the Zora swimming, they'll say, oh, that consumes magic, I'd better stop using it. This is a problem, because a new dungeon at the ending requires using Zora swimming with strict timing, and it's entirely possible for a player to get here without having any real practice with it. Is it fair to ask players to master a mechanic you've forbidden them from using the entire game? Which brings me to the next point.